It is happening. Up until this point, I've had this fear of voicing out exactly how it is that I feel. This all because I didn't want to be attacked for my views, because I didn't want to be put in a position where I will have to explain our pain because I knew it would cause a stir. But what is a stir compared to the whirlstorm that we have been encountering? So, yes, I will speak up and out and into your very mind and soul. But remember this, if what I'm about to say offends you, then you need to ask yourself why it hits home. There's a problem. There's always been a problem. Do not for one moment think that our silence meant that we were at peace. Our voices were never lost, we just gained more power over it. So much so that our voices have now been dubbed as violent. If you think that we've been making a noise, then you are yet to hear us roar. Samtanda Stone said, "The beauty is that we have realized how powerful we are when others have failed to acknowledge that we are powerful in the first place." So let me delve into the issues that I'm battling to grapple with. How is it that Steve Biko in an interview spoke about how when they were protesting, the police and police dogs were sent to contain them, and now the same thing is happening in our universities today? How is it okay that we've been dodging bullets, running away from pepper spray, tear gas, and stun grenades, that we are being arrested all because we want free, quality, decolonized higher education? How is it okay that after everything that happened, we were expected to write exams as if that space was conducive to study in? How is it that people found and find it so easy to distance themselves from a movement that they would benefit from? How were we called violent? How were we called violent when defending ourselves with stones while simultaneously being shot at with rubber and buckshot bullets? Why are we not focused on how management has victimized students, how management has taken out an interdict on students, how students have been excluded, how management has threatened staff members that are part of the concerned staff group, how the communication division fed and continues to feed other students and the public nothing but lies and propaganda, on how the police were sent to contain a situation that didn't need to be contained, how management stood and watched while workers and students were being shot at, how the varsity claims not to have money, then proceeds to install cameras all around campus, how they turned the library and exam venues into prison camps, how they were able to hire private security, but they don't have money, right? This is the very reality that we are staring in the face every single day, carrying our black skin as if it were a burden. And yes, this is the appropriate time to be touched, in case you were wondering. If you're touched, then you can stop listening to this poem because that was just the introduction. So let us move on to this issue of comfort, as you seem to believe that comfort and transformation belong in the same sentence. You believe that comfort and revolution belong in the same sentence. You believe that comfort and struggle belong in the same sentence. But how do you feel uncomfortable with the so-called vandalism around campus? But most importantly, how you want us to prioritize making you feel comfortable? How do you think we can make you feel comfortable in an uncomfortable situation? Discomfort is something we have experienced from our very first breath. Our history tells that story of people's lived experiences. And to those who have remained neutral in all of this, whatever neutral means to you, listen clearly, quote, "If you're neutral in times of injustice, then you've already sided with the oppressor," unquote. And maybe it's not a case of you of siding with the oppressor, but rather becoming the oppressor yourself. Lisa Letutlova agrees and says, "Now is not the time to be neutral, because our aim is not to make you feel comfortable. You should feel uncomfortable because the situation is uncomfortable. So my dear, we cannot make you feel comfortable because that's not the situation that we have had the luxury of experiencing." And yes, I said dear to upset you because your pretentious smile upsets us more. And stop telling us that this is not a race issue. We do not have the luxury of choosing when we want to be black. We cannot push our race aside and act as if it doesn't exist just to please you. So when you say that you are colorblind, I'm left with no option but to believe that the cones in your eyes are damaged, i.e. that you are medically colorblind. Just because you see color, it does not make you racist, it makes you racially aware. Kharata Chengeta said that we cannot wait for you to get comfortable with the issue of race. Another issue you don't seem to understand is the issue of decolonization and the importance of decolonization. Someone, a black person, said that we don't have African scholars. And Siviwe Mhlana responded by saying that just because you don't learn about African scholars, it does not mean that they don't exist. We cannot privilege knowledge coming from Western cultures and traditions that have made us believe that being black is not enough, that being black is a sin, that being black means that you're already a criminal from birth. This has in turn forced us to fight for every breath that we take, to fight for our human dignity, to fight for the right to be considered as a human being on our very own land. Now, the problem with our education system and the reason why we need to decolonize it is imperative. The content we are being taught is Western-centered. We are learning about what Plato thinks of justice, what Thomas Hobbes thinks of political philosophy. We're learning about what Kenneth Waltz thinks of neorealism and structural realism in connection to international relations. We are learning about what John Locke thinks the state of nature is, what Jeremy Bentham believes utilitarianism is, what Immanuel Kant believes on the principle of supreme morality, all Western-centered theories being taught in Azanian institutions. But not that Dr. Cheikh Diop founded that Black Egypt was responsible for the rise of the Mediterranean inclusive of Greece and Rome. We don't learn about how Dr. John Henry Clark challenged white academic historians and attributed their reluctance to acknowledge the historical contributions of Black people as part of the systemic and racist suppression and distortion of African history, of how Dr. Marimba Ani methodically debunked the belief that Western civilization was the best, most constructive society ever built, and she instead pointed out its inherent destructive tendencies, that Dr. Amos Wilson discredited the myth that Black people are inherently criminals. Not what Chinua Achebe thinks of culture, colonialism, feminism, and masculinity. Now we have been told that we should fight the system, that we should engage in robust debate in order to reach conclusions that satisfy everyone. You see, the problem is that you cannot give people a scope or rules or guidelines as to how they should respond to the injustices they're constantly facing, because that very scope and rules and guidelines are created by the same people who have caused the injustices in the first place. And let me echo what Ntokozo Qabe said. Quote, "You want us to call for change in a nice manner, but the time for nicety has surpassed us all," unquote. And somebody asked Caesar Mpofu Walsh how far this so-called violence would go, and he said, as far as management lets it go. If management is able to deal with problems effectively, then there won't be a need to be violent, whatever they define violent as, because evidently our black skin is violent enough. Nisiphethe kakubi man. But you have said that we have transformed, but somehow this idea of transformation is misconstrued. It's misconstrued in schools where Black girls are told to tame their afros, where Black people are told to go and build their shacks, where some schools haven't had any Black administrators for years, where Black people are expected to learn English in order to be successful, where we are expected to applaud you for the transformation that you claimed we have achieved simply because our Vice Chancellor is Black. And I would tackle the gender issue, but that's reserved for another angry poem. I say angry because that's the emotion Black people seem to be inherently and intrinsically linked with. So we will protest and shout and be angry and upset because those are the actions and emotions that you evoke out of us. And just a reminder, you do not have to be directly affected by something in order to care about the cause. We have been told not to obsess with the pigmentation of our skin, whereas that very pigmentation has led to where we are at this very moment. We have been told that we need to get into the culture of debating issues, but we are tired of debating and having to convince people that there is a problem to begin with. We are tired of having to explain ourselves and our stance. Yes, we weren't alive during apartheid, but those people have our ancestors' blood on their hands. Those people oppressed and enslaved many people, and we are tired of those scarlet hands reaching out towards us, acting like they want to help us. We will not be deceived. The land and free education will be received. As Jigs is we can no longer use our valuable breaths to teach you things that can be self-taught. Our breaths are our lives, and Heward says nobody should treat a life as carelessly as this.